Live from the Big Tomato. Welcome to Kings Pod 2020 with your hosts, Jeff and Toke. Jeff, what's going on, man? Happy
Toke,
Friday.
Happy Friday. It's another beautiful week to be a Kings fan. Oh, my God.
Tell me more.
Oh, that was more of a joke than anything else. It's a terrible week to be a Kings fan because it's always a terrible week to be a Kings fan. Because that's our plot. That's our cross to bear, bro. What are we gonna do?
We're gonna talk about it.
That's the plan. Well, we had some things happen this week at least. At least it was an interesting week for us to talk about because trade deadline week, and we got some things. We got some people coming in. We got some people going out. So at least there were some interesting things going on, and there were some really interesting things going on around the league. This was the most active I feel like the trade deadline's been in a long time. My phone was blowing up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have notifications on your phone?
I get the Shams tweets.
Yeah, I don't. I think at one point I had Shams blocked. I don't know.
He probably has you blocked too.
Okay, so I want to just get out ahead of this. The Kings as an organization do deserve all the hate they get and all the criticism they get, and like it's all directionally correct. But I feel like there's a lot of screeching sometimes about nothing. And I don't know, like it just confuses the hell out of me because there are things that I think are a big deal that like no one cares about. And then the Kings trade Keon Ellis and Dennis Schröder for DeAndre Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And the screeching is just like unbearable. Like, oh my God, the Kings, they didn't get a first round pick. They didn't, they traded low on Keon Ellis. Guys, they got the best player in the trade. Like, what exactly now?
Yeah,
is this going to change? Is this going to change the franchise in any way? Probably not.
Of course not.
But, you at least got a forward on the team. He was a number 4 pick. Obviously, we don't care about where people were picked once they're drafted. He's not a star. He's a NBA forward. I think he's averaging like 4. He's having a bad season, and he's averaging like 14 points a game or something like that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you got someone over the height of 6'4", who's literally a forward. Like, haven't we wanted this forever?
When regardless of what you think about the playing time for Keon Ellis and for Dennis Schröder, at least we got a guy who's going to play consistent minutes. Like, there's no way that he's going to come in and ride the bench, right? So we traded away 2 guys that we weren't playing for whatever reason, and we're bringing in a guy who can start and play next to Keegan Murray. That's kind of their whole thing that they're talking about, is him playing next to Keegan Murray. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what it is, because the other 2 guys weren't playing well next to Keegan Murray. So why not give it a shot?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where I just want to yell at people. Like, I don't understand why. So, okay, we could have, like, allegedly the Kings floated this out there that you could get a first round pick for Keon Ellis, and that turned out to not be true, which, number one, like, why are you floating that out there? Like, I'm old school. I prefer the Jeff Petrie way of doing things, which is you find out about a trade after it's happened. I don't like Woj bombs. I don't like Shams. I don't like any of that crap. That's part of the reason why I had Shams blocked. Like, I think a lot of this stuff is team driven, team meaning like the Knicks, the Lakers,
sure,
or agent driven. And it's all BS. It's all angling. Like, I don't really care about rumors. Now, I just want to go back to the Hunter stuff. The fact that Kings fans would rather have gotten like the 28th pick in the draft this coming year instead of DeAndre Hunter, just like, it's just pure loser think. The odds of drafting someone at number 28 who's going to be as good as DeAndre Hunter is very low. It's not impossible. Jimmy Butler was a 30th pick, and we all know my whole take on draft positions. It's like, whatever. But statistically, you're not going to get a player who's going to be better than DeAndre Hunter is in the next 3 years in the draft at number 29. So you turned Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, who was a mistake to sign, into a guy who kind of fits what your lineup needs and might work out. And if he doesn't, he's gone next year. Whatever. You're taking a swing at something that has more of a track record and a higher probability of working out than some 20-year-old kid that you're going to take at number 30.
Well, and to your point, he at least does the things that Kings fans have been saying that we've been needing for the last 3 or 4 years, which is he can hit a three. His threes are down a little bit this year, but he can historically hit a three, and he plays defense. It's
Great.
like
you buy low.
That's what we've been saying we wanted. But also it goes back to the fact that, dude, people overvalue what we have with the Kings all the time. So people overvalue Keon Ellis. You know, I know I'm not a huge Keon Ellis fan. I know you're not a huge Keon Ellis fan, but there are Kings fans out there who think he's sick, who think who we deserve a first round pick for him. It's like, it's just, it was never going to happen.
I mean, if he was locked up, maybe you could get a team to give you the 27th pick, maybe, but he's an unrestricted free agent. Like, why would a team give up a first round pick? I mean, the fact that you got a team to give up DeAndre Hunter for him is kind of impressive and take on Dennis Schroeder's salary. Now, Cleveland kind of needs what they got in that trade, so it makes sense, but they're also selling low on DeAndre Hunter, kind of like Bitcoin, right? Like,
yep.
You want to buy the dip. Like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it as a investor. That's how you do it as a general manager for a team. Now, this is not to let Scott Perry off the hook and say, like, Scott Perry didn't make a colossal mistake. I mean, I'll save it for later in the show, but the biggest mistake that Scott Perry has made since he's become the general manager of the Kings was hiring Doug Christie. I'll just say that. But okay, like, let's put that to the side for now. Signing Dennis Schroeder was a pretty bad, like, not catastrophic. You're able to move off of him, and the Keon Ellis handling was bad. And that goes into the Doug Christie stuff. It's like, you're going to hire this guy who says he wants defense, but then doesn't play like one of your better defenders. Not that he's an all NBA defender guy, but it's like, okay, like, you bungled handling Keon Ellis, regardless of you and I not being that high on him. You could still criticize Scott Perry for that. But hey, he ended up getting a starting caliber forward. See, like, starting caliber forward on a championship team. I don't know.
We don't got to worry about that. We don't
have to worry about that, right?
The Kings fans don't have to worry about that.
You got to be good before you can even start thinking about a championship. So,
right. But I think,
yeah.
Going back to the Dennis Schroeder thing, and I know we've chatted about this before, but granted, Scott Perry essentially just unwound his mistakes from the summer with this trade deadline. That's essentially what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at that Dennis Schroeder signing in a vacuum, he would have been murdered by our fan base if we came into the season without a point guard again. And we had not yet signed Russ Westbrook. So, and there's no indication that Russ wanted to come here until no one else gave him the deal that he wanted. So at the time of that signing, it made sense. He was the best point guard on the market at the time of the signing. So, like, it is what it is. Granted, it didn't work out. And so there's part of me that's like, okay, he made a mistake and he was essentially unwinding those mistakes, but at least he unwound it. At least he was a guy who was like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, we're going to ride this into the ground. He's like, all right, it didn't work, I'm going to move on from him. So,
and also,
there's a level of respect there on my part.
Yeah, so Bill Simmons had this viral tweet about how, like, the pattern since Vivek has taken over the Kings is they make this incredibly stupid move. I'm not going to do it justice. Spoiler alert, I think Bill Simmons is an idiot, and I think his take is dumb. But so I'm not going to even, like, get into exactly what his argument is. I'm going to straw man it. Like, I want to make his argument weaker than it actually was. Like, I'm not steel manning his argument because I don't like him. His argument is like, okay, Vivek, he makes a bad decision. The decision blows up in his face, and then he makes another bad decision to get off the first bad decision. And it's like, okay, a few weeks ago, I said that the national media is more right than Kings fans are, even though they get individual things wrong because they just directionally understand what's going on. And that's kind of encapsulated pretty well in this tweet. Isn't it a good thing if you move off of your mistake and you do it decisively and quickly? Like, isn't the dumb thing like being stubborn and saying, no, we have to ride this into the ground with Dennis Schröder? Number one, and this was about Dennis Schröder. Number two, like, what are we? I just get dizzy like thinking about this type of stuff because it's like you signed a guy to $14 million a year contract. That's nothing. Like, that's not a lot of money in the NBA. Like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. The NBA has kind of turned into in the last 12 months, like, if a guy's not going to be a starter for a championship team, they should make like less than $8 million. And then if a guy, and like, so that's like 99% of league. And then like you should pay like
$45 million plus.
I don't understand. Like Dennis Schröder at 14 million. Okay. Like maybe no one else was going to give him that, but let's say he's a $11 million player. Like, did the Kings really do something that's that dumb? Like, I mean, what again, are we even talking about?
Someone else has given him that now, and they sent us DeAndre Hunter for the pleasure of it. So it's like, it is what it is. I mean, again, I think it's fine that he moved off of it. I wish he would have made a better decision, or I wish there was a better decision to be made on the front end. But again, we're here now.
Kings fans really got to just get over this. Like, we need 1 million draft picks because, like, the Kings have had 1 million draft picks and they've messed that up. So, like, what's
there's
to
also
say?
No opportunity for us to get 1 million draft picks. So it's like the opportunities for us to add a bunch of draft capital aren't there right now with our current roster construction. So we got to kind of move on from that. Also, we don't need second round picks. That's not what's that's not what's gonna get us to the promised land.
You got to get to a point where you're finding players who, like DeAndre Hunter, you're buying low on. That's kind of like another route to go instead of let's draft a 20-year-old kid and, you know, like maybe he'll be something in 3 years. Like, no, why don't you, if you can, bring in a guy who's like 20. I know DeAndre Hunter's a little older. He's 28. But like, if you could bring in a 25-year-old who's like maybe hasn't had a good chance with his first team and like he's kind of out of the rotation and it's like that's where you're going to, and again, we have to nuke the nostalgia. We can't go back to the early 2000 Kings every single time, but for a second, indulge me. That's how they did it in the early 2000s. They didn't have a number one pick. They didn't.
Right.
They drafted Jason Williams at number 7, which, you know, wasn't the best player available, by the way. You could have drafted Dirk. You could have drafted Paul Pierce. They went after Jason Williams in that draft. But okay, you drafted a young point guard. You traded for Chris Webber, who was damaged goods. You signed Vlade Divac, who is damaged goods, or, you know, whatever, underutilized or not, you know, not what he became in Sacramento before.
Wasn't achieving his potential.
Wasn't. Doug Christie bounced around the league until he started playing point guard for Toronto, and then you kind of figured that if we trade Corliss for him, he's a better fit. Because then you move Corliss out of the starting lineup and you put Page. Like, that's how roster building should be. And if you can get draft picks to supplement that, that's good too. It's not just, well, okay, we're not good. We have 12 wins. Trade Sabonis for 2 second-round picks. Trade Keegan Murray for like the 20th pick in the draft. Well, I mean, that maybe I would do that. But like, you know what I mean? Like, just having a ton of draft picks is not a roadmap and it's not a strategy. You have to have a vision for what you're trying to build. And DeAndre Hunter might be part of that. And if he's not, he's a free agent the following year.
2 years.
Wipe your hand. Like, big deal. All right. So do we even want to comment on Dario Saric and the 58th pick in the draft going to Chicago?
Again, I think it's just an unwind. So no, I think it is what it is.
Chicago receives the worst second-round pick of like New York,
whatever.
Like, it's like a bunch of teams. It's like it's going to be in the late 50s. Okay,
right.
All right, Sabonis in Toronto. What do we got to say about this? I'll let you go first.
So there was, you know what? There was a couple different things that was going on. So
Okay.
I had heard that they got off. It's all rumors at this point, right? I mean, there's really nothing else to go off of aside from what the random Twitter sphere has to say about it. But
they're the best people.
That's it. There was a couple different options that I saw. The most recent one was that they offered us Jakob Poeltl and 2 seconds and one other player and RJ Barrett. I would not take that deal, obviously, for Sabonis. The 2 seconds don't do anything for us, and Jakob Poeltl's contract is potentially the worst contract in the league, considering his chronic back issues.
Zach LaVine.
but Jakob Poeltl has a longer. I think he has 4 years left.
No, he's worse than Zach. His contract is worse than Zach LaVine.
I think he has 4 years left in his deal. So from what I've heard, there was no first whatsoever even on the table coming back from Toronto. So again, I think that if, let's say that's the deal that's on the table, I agree with Scott Perry. You don't do anything because, like, what value are you even? You're just moving him to move in, and you're taking on another bad contract. So at that point, you just say we'll keep him, and maybe the market opens up a little bit in the summer, or you wait for a different day. But I don't think there's any opportunity to make that deal. And then there was another deal that I had heard where they were going to potentially give us, what was it, 2 firsts? It was 2 like really late firsts. And again, I don't think that we need the 28th pick in the draft for Domantas Sabonis. It doesn't do anything for us.
The odds that you're going to draft someone at number 28, I want everyone to listen to what I'm about to say. The odds that you're going to draft someone at the 28th pick that is going to, at any point in his career, be a better player than Sabonis is today,
it'd be a miracle.
It's probably less than 5%.
It's got to be less than 5%.
I'm being
it's got to be way less than over the history of the draft. It's got to be way less than 5%.
So again, like, we got to move off Sabonis. Why do we have to move on? Like, people just, like, they say these things over and over again, and like they don't ever stop. And one thing I've learned,
I will say this: I wanted to move off Sabonis.
I know you do.
I would have been thrilled if we made a reasonable move. But if there's no reasonable move to be made, then we're not going to do it. Like, there's no reason to make a move just for the sake of making a move.
So let's actually, like, tediously kind of play this out just a little bit. Please walk me through why just getting rid of him would be a good thing, or his contract or whatever. Like, is the idea that we're going to be able to do something with that cap room?
Essentially, yes. The idea is that we're going to be able to sign somebody else probably cheaper and give ourselves an opportunity to make other moves elsewhere to fill out the roster and complete the roster in a better way. Obviously, when you take back a Jakob Poeltl, that essentially eliminates that entirely. So it doesn't make any sense. But in the pretend world where we could just clear that space, then of course it gives you an opportunity to develop your roster in other ways.
Okay, so how do I want to say this? Do you think you could sign a player better than him?
At that position? Well,
a player.
Hard. I guess the short answer is no, but that is not exactly what you're trying to do with that move in the window that we are in. Because we're not in a win now window. So I think you could I think you could sign a couple of players that could potentially develop into quality pieces on your team.
Okay, I think that that's a solid argument. Okay. I'll grant you that's a solid argument. It's not as dumb as what I think a lot of Kings fans might be suggesting. Yeah, okay, maybe, like, breaking that talent into 2 different positions, and it's like neither player is as good as him, but cumulatively you have a more rounded out roster. Okay, that's probably the best argument I've heard, to be clear. But I want to just say this. I think that the former Oakland Athletics that play in West Sacramento now, by the way, and the movie Moneyball has one-shotted and completely broken so many people's brains that it's just unbelievable. Like it used to be when we were growing up, you just wanted to get a good player on your team. But now we've kind of introduced this concept of like, value to contract, as if like the dollar figure does anything on the court. Like, who cares? Now, I understand when you're doing roster construction, it does matter. So, like, I'm not going to completely dismiss that.
Yeah.
But you're already screwed. Like, that's already off the table. So, like, at that point, I'm not taking a downgrade in talent just to save Vivek money. Like, no, you have a talented player. There's utility to having that talented player on your team, even if you're bad. And today's price is not tomorrow's price. Maybe tomorrow some GM is on the hot seat and they're feeling some heat and they're like, well, this is a win now move that I could do. And I will trade you this 23-year-old prospect who's like a third-year player.
Right.
And like a bunch of experience for Sabonis because we need a deep playoff run this year. That didn't happen this summer or this trade deadline. It might not happen next year, but it's a possibility. You know when it's not a possibility is if you just salary dump him for 2 second-rounders. So I applaud Scott Perry for holding the line there.
I agree with you, but I will say this, back to your point about the talent. Like, I think that we have a lot of talent on this team, right? Like, I think Sabonis, Levine, DeRozan, Keegan Murray, to some extent. I think that you have talent on the team, but it has to work together, and it obviously doesn't. And so, back to my point, I'm fine with downgrading talent while potentially upgrading potential.
Okay. I mean, that was ideally what you would have done with De'Aaron Fox, which
correct.
Once again, we have to go back to this because like all the frustration that Kings fans are feeling today and like all this like screeching and all this and that was me 1 year ago because it's like, like once you did that trade, that just set the wheels in motion for the next 5 years. Like, and I don't know if people didn't realize it at the time, but it's like, that was the ace up your sleeve. If you move off of this guy who's an excellent player, you can get real assets for him. And instead of doing that, I mean, we don't need to rehash it. Everyone understands what that was. But it's like, that was your chance.
But to your
that
point,
was your chance. Since after that, there's no putting Humpty Dumpty back together after that. You just got to let it play out at this point.
Well, and to your point, I don't think that people really realized how locked in for the next multiple years this roster was with the adding of Zach LaVine, the adding of DeRozan, and the extension for Sabonis. I don't think people really realized, including me to a certain extent, that like these are contracts that absolutely nobody wants. These are players that nobody wants at this value. And so it is, and I understand that's a fluid thing, but
it is.
But
it's very much a fluid thing. One day this last summer, the aprons came into play and every NBA team all of a sudden decided, oh crap, we're overpaying everyone on our roster and no one has any cap. Like that was literally like a school of fish where like they all in unison and instantly kind of turned left or whatever.
Right.
So that's why we didn't see it. But just as a general principle, you don't trade for older, more expensive players who are not as good as the younger, cheaper player.
Right. Yeah.
Can we talk about well, we could talk about Scott Perry's press conference, or we could talk about Scott Perry's moves now, and now that his first year functionally as the Kings GM is done. Nothing's going to happen between now and draft day, so that is 1 year.
Yep.
1 year's worth of things. All right, I watched Scott Perry's press conference in preparation for this. And I got to be honest with you, I just don't understand like why people hang on every word that these coaches and executives say. I mean, the noteworthy things I'll just throw out there. He was asked about Sabonis' future, and he's like, well, he's on the team. He was asked to comment on if Doug Christie is going to coach the team next year, and he's like, he's going to coach the team until you hear otherwise from me, which is very non-committal.
Right.
Which I think's maybe a good thing. But it's like, okay, he just doesn't say anything of substance this entire press conference. Why do I need to hear? So I don't know. You thought there was some interesting stuff in there. What did you pull out from the press conference?
Well, you pulled out two of the main things that I was thinking, but I thought specifically his comment of basically, our financial flexibility comes in at the end of the 27-28 season.
Okay.
I thought that was a signal to Kings fans that it's going to be a rough road until then. There's not a whole lot of movement to be had until then, and that is really when our rebuild could potentially start. Because at this point, we're assuming that the tides don't shift and these players don't become interesting to folks. We're locked in with this roster, and these are the guys we're rocking with, and at least for the remainder of this year and all of next year, we can expect more of the same, essentially.
Can I make a you win by winning argument here briefly? Okay.
By the way, really quick, he did say like 5 times that he wants to win as many games as possible this year. Which he's not going to say otherwise, of course. He's not going to be like, I'd like to lose games. But
that's probably some sort of hedge in case the league ever is looking into them for tanking or something. But I mean, they're pretty clearly tanking. I don't know what else, he can't say differently.
Hey, hold on. He said that word's not even in their vocabulary. Okay. He's never even heard the word before.
I don't even know what word we're talking about. All right.
Exactly.
Here's my you win by winning argument. There's a lot of bad teams in the NBA over the last 10 years. There's, like the Charlotte Hornets. There's like all these teams that are just, whatever. They suck. The Kings are one of them, but like there's a bunch of other ones. It's not like the Kings are they might be uniquely bad in the sense that it's just you can't get out of your own way, but there are other really bad NBA franchises, right? Do you, as a NBA mind fan, whatever you want to call it, be like, let's try to poach that random player on the Washington Wizards, or let's try to poach this guy on the Charlotte Hornets before they got good this year, or pick your other like trash NBA team? Like, I hate to say it, but when your team is losing, that also affects the trade value of the players you have. So it's like, if you had, let's say the Kings were 500 this season, which like many people would argue, you can't, that's purgatory. That's like the worst place to be, all this and that. I think you could get something more for Sabonis than 2 second-round picks, though. People would look at him and be like, well, yeah, Sacramento's like kind of mid. They're kind of a mid-level team, but like he's producing and that's leading to some wins. What you don't want is to be like putting up stats on a losing team. And so I think that's where it really hurts. I think that's where, listen, this is the entire argument against Zach LaVine.
I mean, listen, I understand your point, but at the same time, like, it's a chicken or the egg thing. Like these guys are going to be more appealing to other teams because if you're winning games, they have to be putting up better numbers. So like it doesn't, I don't
or
think
those numbers are leading to wins, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, because I think it's, to your point, I think if you have 3 or 4 other players who are playing well and you're playing well, everyone's eating, then that makes it seem like, okay, this guy can play in a system. This guy can still find his spots. He can find his moments on a quality team. And so you might have other teams that get more interested where they're like, maybe he can fit on our team who's also doing that. Whereas again, if you're DeMarcus Cousins and you're putting up 30 points a game on a horrible squad, right? It's like, okay, but like it does that, like, what does that even tell you when you get every opportunity?
The book was out on Cousins. I think the whole league knew what was going on there, but that's a whole other. Hey,
but you understand my point. Like, what does that even tell you?
Speaking of things that set the organization back, I don't know if you remember this, because it's like the dark ages of the Kings. I mean, until now, this is probably even worse. But that Paul Westphal,
bro, we were
last
born in the
season.
Dark.
We were. All right, Tom Hardy. Paul Westphal gets into it with DeMarcus Cousins, and he writes an op-ed in the Sacramento Bee about how the Kings need to trade him. Jeff Petrie signs off on him writing this and then proceeds to fire him the next day. And then Kenny Natt takes the team. That was a 17-win season, which
Incredible.
the Kings are going to challenge this year, right?
Yep.
Paul Westphal was right. Like
100%.
Had the Kings been like, we got to move off this guy, like they wasted another 5 years with him, you know?
Right.
And so that delayed, like, I don't want to say a rebuild, but that delayed like moving on to the next phase of your build.
Yeah, but dude, this is what we talked about the last time. It's like, this is what the Kings do. Like, it's same thing we're doing with Keegan Murray. We're going to hold on to Keegan Murray so long that he's going to be old. Like, no one's going to want him. Like, we're going to hold on to him. We're going to like, instead of selling high and trying to get as much value as we can, just like we should have done with Boogie and just like we should have done with Fox, like, we're going to hold on to him until he's an old man and everyone's like, no, we're good.
The fact that Scott Perry brought DeMar DeRozan back this season, that's an indictment right there. I don't know what he had to do. I don't know what his options were, but my understanding was there was enough smoke there that someone was willing to take him on for a season because he's only partially guaranteed next season.
Right.
And you already had this insane logjam. You got to play DeMar, you know? Like,
I think it comes back to, do you think that they thought we were going to win this season? Like, again, do you think Scott Perry thought?
Well, from a roster balance standpoint, you should walk into the season and be like, all right, well, DeMar and Levine, yeah, they do score in different ways, but they are redundant. They're both shooting guards. Like,
they barely score in different ways.
Well, I mean, DeMar is more of like
ISO like elbow jumper, and
Levine's a slasher. DeMar's like a post player, functionally. I mean, like, it's not 100%, yeah, but like he's a post player. He's a mid-range post player. He comes off the screen, maybe like.
Right.
I mean, what else, man? What else could the Kings have done this trade deadline? Like I said in the last pod, you got stuff that no one wants to buy. No one's going to come to your yard sale. I don't know what people were expecting. I will say this though, and this needs to be hammered home. The idea that they did have a bunch of irons in the fire and they were unable to pull something off is very reminiscent of Monty's last few years in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't my take yet, but I want to put this out there as like, I'm thinking about this and we'll see if it's true. This just leads me to believe that it's a Vivek problem in being indecisive. Vivek is too indecisive.
Yeah, well,
these guys cannot they can't pull the trigger.
Possible.
Well, he wants to get.
So do you think Vivek's
Kyle Kuzma?
Do you think Vivek's involved in the trades at this point?
I think like any owner in the NBA, he has to sign off on it. Yeah, but he probably has to sign off on stuff. And from what I understand, he calls his general manager, whoever it is, whether it's Vlade, Monty, Pete D'Alessandro, now Scott Perry, he calls him 2 or 3 times a day, even during the off season.
Just to talk about players or whatever? Give me a break.
That's what James Ham has reported. So
Give me a break.
Taking a step back? Does Scott Perry have more capital right now than Monty did in the last year he was general manager? Absolutely. I'm sure he has more autonomy as well.
Yeah.
But the idea that like he can just make a trade without running it by Vivek, I have no intel to back this up, but I feel like this is kind of where the bottleneck is happening.
Right. I will say this about Scott Perry. I think we need to have Scott Perry with the Kings long term. And
okay.
I don't say that because I think he's like some wizard GM, but we have to have somebody in that position long term and let them try to build a vision. And again, considering there's no moves to be made until 2027, 2028 for the most part, like he's going to have at least 2 years on the job or 3 years on the job before he's even able to start implementing a grand design. And so, like, there's no, in my mind, there's no reason to move off of him if we're gonna go try to find someone else to do this rebuild, because like unless we're paying him pennies on the dollar, what's the point of keeping him on?
I think the way that most general managers who are successful find success is they hit on like they it's like going back to Vegas. It's like you don't win every hand, right? But you get on a streak where you win like 9 out of 12 or like 13 out of 17 or something like that. And it's like if you look at the Warriors, for example, they had plenty of misses. They drafted Brandon Wright. They drafted Marco Bellinelli. I mean, Bellinelli was fine as an NBA player, but he wasn't like a savior for them. They drafted a bunch of these guys, but like they hit on Steph and they hit on Clay, and then like that was enough to get them to a certain level, and then they rounded out their roster to get them to the next level, right? And so when you're constantly changing your front office and there's no continuity, you have these information gaps that form. For example, the way Keon Ellis was handled. Scott Perry, I don't think, had a good enough understanding of who Keon Ellis was as a player because he wasn't here last year. He wasn't the guy who found him as an undrafted player and who watched him develop, right? So, again, not the biggest Keon Ellis fan in the world, but the guy's an NBA player and he was an undrafted two-way guy that you found. That's found money.
Right.
Malik Monk's another one. Like you have your image of Malik Monk, from Detroit or New York or wherever he was in between jobs. I think he lives in Detroit full time. You don't understand what Malik means to this franchise. And I'm hoping that after this season is done, and that's not to say that like Malik's untradeable. Malik's very tradable. I have no issues with that.
Extremely.
But he's not someone that we just need to get rid of. Like again, you have a good player on your roster. Like you can move off of him for something, but you're not just going to move off of him to move off of him. And it sounded like early in Scott's tenure, because I don't think he understood who Malik was as a player, he was just looking to move on to him, off of him. There was a rumor that that's who we were going to trade for Dennis Schroeder, even though we had a trade exception, even though we had the full mid-level. So anyway, so the best argument for continuity is Scott Perry's early mistakes.
Well, that brings me, speaking of Malik Monk and a potential trade, I want to chat about the Jonathan Kuminga trade, because I need you to explain to me what on earth the Warriors are doing. So the way that I see this trade is they essentially traded a young, high-quality talent. Granted, they weren't getting along for whatever reason. They traded Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield for an expiring contract of Porzingis. So essentially, they just gave him away for nothing, essentially.
Yeah.
And from what I recall,
we offered them nothing.
Well, I think at least we offered him Malik Monk, from what I recall.
So,
and you can't tell me that, you can't tell me that we didn't offer them Keon Ellis as well, considering what we just did.
Hey, that's another thing. From what I understand, the Warriors told the Kings Keon Ellis gets the trade done, and the Kings said no.
Right, but that's what I've heard
if
as well.
That's
and I'm
true.
Like,
if that's true,
I
that's
can't
a
believe
big indictment. But
that would be insanity if that's true.
I think we have to consider the possibility, and I don't know if I don't even know if I think it's probable, but I'd say there's like a non-zero chance that the Warriors were willing to take less to not send him to Sacramento, because it is literally a drive away.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's like, what if this guy does,
there's like a sick player,
and it's like, you just gave him to the Kings for Dario Saric, Devin Carter.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Like, I think Joe Lacob just kind of dug his heels in and was like, nah, screw them.
I mean, maybe
there's an element of that.
When I saw that trade come through, I was like, really? Like, you gave him away for nothing? We were willing to give you something. That surprised me.
Well, hey, Atlanta has a player option for him for next year, and it's unclear whether or not they view him as anything. maybe they're just going to take a look at him for the next few months in Atlanta and be like, you know what, we don't want to be in the Jonathan Kuminga business for $25 million a year, which is what the option is.
Right.
At which point he becomes, I think, an unrestricted free agent.
Well, you said a player
or maybe
option.
restricted.
Is it a player option or a team option?
No. I think it's a team option. Excuse me if I said player option. I believe I misspoke, which means that he completely got screwed in his negotiations this summer.
Yeah, it was a horrible.
Kings could come in and offer him a mid-level next summer. I mean, if you still think he could be the guy, I mean, it also depends on who you draft. If you're drafting DeBunsa, you're probably not going to do it.
Well, that was my other question for you. Is that let's say we get the number 1 pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of mode does that give Scott Perry's front office in terms of fan base love? Because I understand that obviously Scott Perry would have nothing to do with us getting the first pick in the draft, but that always lends a lot of credence to the front office for some reason, and it extends their lifeline. It extends their leash a little bit. And so let's say we got the number 1 pick, and assuming we took that guy from BYU, what do you think that does to the front office, and how long do you think that leash gets?
That's a good question. I think that Scott Perry probably has let's see, Vlade made the Bagley pick in 2018, which was number 2 overall, and he was gone in 2020. Yeah, I think probably like 2 years at most. I mean, even if it's the number 1 pick, and it's got to be the right guy. And we were talking to I was talking to someone the other day about this, and it was like, well, Keegan Murray was a number 4 pick. So if the Kings have a number 3 or number 4 pick, like, getting another Keegan Murray is not good enough. You can't settle for a guy who's going to just be like, okay, in the NBA. You got to go all in. I think that's maybe another route you could go, is if you could trade Keegan Murray for another top 10 pick in this year's draft, that way you have 2 swings at it. That's maybe a route to go.
Incredible. Yeah.
And again, I'm contradicting what I said earlier in the podcast about, well, young, talented players maybe make more sense in a draft pick, which is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, but I think I know.
Top 10
I think I know what. I think I know what Keegan Murray is at this point, and I'm not interested in paying $28 million a year for that.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you, if I'm being honest. I think if you could find another Keegan Murray in the draft at a different position, but the same qualities, the same level of play, I think that you'd take that in a heartbeat.
Keegan Murray shooting 37% from 3. Like, I'm not even asking for 40. 37% from 3, we could talk. Keegan Murray shooting, and every year his percentage goes down. Like, now he's below 35% on his career.
It's pretty strange.
That's
to
tough.
Be like, if we, it's pretty strange to be like, if we could go back to rookie Keegan Murray, we'd be thrilled. It's like, that's a pretty weird statement to make.
Right. So
it's like he's getting worse.
Man, being a Kings fan, podcast, or whatever you want to call it, it's just something else. Did you have any other takeaways from the press conference?
No, I mean, I think one of my bigger takeaways is that I think Christie's gone after this year, which I think is kind of whack, to be honest with you. But
all right, I'm just going to tell you right now, Doug Christie has to be gone for this franchise to move forward. And
he's not our long-term coach, but if we can't rebuild,
he needs to go now. Like,
tomorrow,
he cannot come back.
Yesterday.
Let me explain. The Kings are like the worst offensive team in the NBA. And it's like, you look at their roster, they shouldn't be bad offensively. And then you think about it, and it's like, well, how do they use their talented players? And it's like, they don't put any of them in a position to be successful. But this is the key and the most important thing. The Kings don't run an offense. They don't have an offensive system.
Believe me, I've noticed.
It's
ISO.
As George from Carmichael pointed out on our text thread the other day, it is literally the only time in an NBA game that it looks like a 24-hour fitness. Like, you could go to Fulton and Hurley, and that like it is that. Like that is there's no difference. There are
Yeah.
no plays being ran. Oh, it's
Yep.
supposed to be a free flowing flow offense, and it's like
get
yeah,
the ball
man,
to the most athletic guy and let's see if he can dunk.
that's
It's
just
like-
that's just
that's the Kings offense.
it's not working, and it lays a lot of credence to this speculation that I've had where maybe Doug did so well last season because you still had the remnants and the framework of Mike Brown's system in place. And once we tore it all down and he brought in his people who are not very impressive, if we're being honest. I mean, Mike Woodson's fine, but is he really someone that like that's who you have? Like, again, dude, like it just, I'm just so frustrated because it just goes back to with Scott Perry too, but like more so with Doug Christie. At least Scott Perry, you could justify it in some way, but it's like, is this the best person you could have hired?
Well,
we're gonna suck for a couple years. No, dude. Like when the Seattle Sonics drafted Kevin Durant, they went out and they hired a coach, and then they hired another coach. In like any team, take your pick. Whenever you get a number one pick, or you get like you're starting something fresh and something new, you bring in a coach that you want to like start the new process. Don't
get me wrong. If we have a number one pick, I agree with you.
Dude, he has to, like, I hate to say it because like we all know what Doug means to the city. We all know what Doug means to the franchise. We all know what Doug means to our childhood. I mean, the guy literally uppercutted Rick Fox. And like
incredible.
I mean, they should have given him, not to condone violence.
We might need to do a uppercut statue or something.
Yeah, like just maybe like if we were to do a statue of him, that's what we would do, right?
Yeah.
But like he can't be the coach moving forward.
But
there's a reason. There's a reason that going into this. There's a reason going into this season. You thought the Kings were going to win 39 games. I thought they were going to win 30. Vegas thought they were going to win 35 games. Everyone on the radio, I think even the national media had us in the mid 30s. And they're going to win like 15 games or whatever. They're going to, I don't know, maybe they win 20. But like they've, in a colossal manner, underperformed their roster. And that falls squarely on the head coach. Whenever you look at how good of a job a coach is doing, you look at the roster, you say that roster is about a fill-in-the-blank win team. And if they overperform that, you say the coach is doing a good job. And if they underperform that, you say the coach is doing a bad job. And they have, in a colossal way, underperformed that.
Sure, but let's look at what that actually looks like for next year. Given that we're going to have the same roster, we're probably not going to have any major changes take place. Are you going to bring in a baller coach or whoever the most baller coach is? Are you going to bring in your guy and have him coach a terrible team? Now, don't get me wrong. If we get the number one pick, I totally agree with you. We got to reset the tone and we got to go into next year with a fresh set of eyes and somebody who can set a culture for the number one pick, who ideally is going to be our franchise player going forward. But without that, are you going to go pay somebody to continue to lose games? Or even worse, again, are you going to pay someone to go win us 35 games, which is a worse position to be in?
I don't agree that it's a worse position to be in.
But
anyway, that's besides the point. Steph Curry wouldn't be who he is today. You could take this to the bank. Steph Curry would not be who he is today if Don Nelson didn't coach him his first season in the NBA. We all know a variety of different players, from Nick Van Exel all the way to Rafe LaFrentz, all the way down. There's just a bunch of players throughout Don Nelson's coaching history that have been whatever they've been, and then they go play for Nelly, and all of a sudden he just lights a fire under them, and he finds what makes them special. He hones in on that, and he coaches around that. And that for Steph Curry is a rookie, because let's be clear, there were a lot of people when Steph was drafted that were like, I don't know if this is going to work in the NBA. Yeah, it looks good. Like there was no reason on paper that Steph should work, but Jimmer shouldn't work in the NBA. Like, we're not going to, whatever. And I think, to be honest, Steph's success was one of the reasons the Kings drafted Jimmer, because they're very similar players at the college level.
Right.
But what's the difference? Like, okay, Jimmer probably was never going to be an NBA player. So I'm like, it's not a one-to-one comparison. But if Steph was drafted by the Kings I think Steph would have been an excellent NBA player. I don't think he is what he is today, though.
So I have a hard time with it because I just looked it up via, of course, ChatGPT. And during Steph's first season, they won 23 games. Mm-hmm. And so it's a matter of Steph affecting the winning as opposed to him coming in and riding the bench and being awful. And right, like we don't have a Steph Curry. I think if the Kings would have drafted Steph Curry, he would have turned into Steph Curry. I'm not to say we would have gotten the championships because we probably wouldn't have done anything else right, but he would have still been the guy that he is, right? Because he's been the same player in college. He's one of those guys that you're like, we should have known because he was the same player in college. Like he was lighting it up at Davidson the same way he's lighting it up in the NBA, and people just didn't think it was going to transfer, and it transferred. It didn't transfer because he got to the Warriors. It transfers because like shoot or shoot.
Yeah, man. But I think if he was in Sacramento, I think that he would have came up against. There would have been systemic issues that didn't let him be who he was going to be. He had to be this other thing because that's the system that they ran. Whereas that's not how Nelly coaches. And I'm not saying every team needs to have Nelly's system, although frankly, that would be a lot better than whatever the hell Doug Christie's doing this year. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
See if you could get him off of his beach in Hawaii smoking weed. Maybe he could come be a consultant for the Kings. That's probably a better idea than anything else the Kings have done in the last decade.
Right.
But again, I think that there's value to having a coach who has a track record of developing talent, helping them achieve their potential, and taking them to the next level. And I think that you need to get someone. This is the Carmichael Dave argument from when Vivek bought the team. There's no salary cap when it comes to your front office, your coaching, your training staff. It's like, put all your money there. Like that's the arbitrage situation in the NBA. You're not going to, you outspend the other teams in that department, and everyone else is limited salary cap wise. So you're going to have an advantage when you have so many disadvantages. Like you have the stink of being the most losing franchise like in the last 20 years, one playoff appearance.
Right.
You have an aging roster of bad contracts who don't fit together. Like this is, you're going to get the guy who's willing to do it for the lowest amount in the NBA. Like this is,
I mean, yeah, just fundamentally that right there should tell you all you need to know. But are there other teams that do that? And I don't know the answer to the question. Are there other teams that go out and way overpay coaches because they know that that's an area where they're going to be able to create an advantage?
One of the listeners to this show, very well, their kid went to school with Luke Walton's kid. And so he had a pretty good relationship with Luke, just as parents.
Right.
And I, randomly, even after Luke got fired, I'd go to this kid's little league game to watch him because he's someone close to me. And I'd see Luke there, and like I never talked to him because he's there to watch his kid. You leave him alone in public. But like from Luke's mouth, he said that the Kings, compared to the Warriors and the Lakers, have much lower resources when it comes to scouting and like advanced metrics and all that stuff. Like they don't have the resources. Like the head coach doesn't have the resources that he had as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and the San Francisco Warriors. I guess they were Oakland back then.
Sure, but is that because we don't have the resources to pay for it, or is that because we're just not?
Dude, the Kings are one of the only teams in the NBA that runs in the black. What do you mean? Like
that's what I'm saying. Is like, so we're just
they got the resources.
Right.
No, Vivek is trying to do this like tech bro like thing where it's like this he's disruptor who's like gonna crowdsource
disruptive,
stuff.
All right.
Well, yeah, he's disrupted the entire city.
That's it.
All right, man. Let's see. What else did we have on the agenda? Other trades around the league.
I think the one that stuck out, the Anthony
James
Davis
Harden
trade.
Anthony Davis
trade. I will never not say this. The fix is in. Something is wrong with that Dallas situation. Getting rid of Luka Doncic for the number 1 pick for Anthony Davis, and now Anthony Davis is out of there. Did you see? I can't even remember what it was.
Wait a minute. Hold on. They got Marvin Bagley back in that trade, who was drafted higher than Lucas. So actually, they traded up.
That's true. Yeah, Bagley's finally in a Dallas jersey, which is what he should have been all along. Boy, that's upsetting.
Oh man,
that's like a slap. That's like a slap in the face all the way around.
Well, look, Anthony Davis going to Washington is a pretty clear signal that Washington is done rebuilding. They got Trae Young, who no one wanted. Atlanta gave him away.
Right.
And they got Anthony Davis for, some return. Chris Middleton and I think 3 picks, firsts. But they're very mediocre picks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have their 2 guys, and I think they kept the other young players that they liked, which did not include Marvin Bagley, by the way. They lost the race to the bottom with the Kings by winning right before that trade. So I think Marvin Bagley went 7 for 7
they played well, dude. And Scal and BCA played well. Scal and him, I think they put up 58 points combined or something. It was ridiculous.
Look, Washington's gonna phone it in the rest of this season, but they're going into the next season. They got their 2 guys. That's interesting. James Harden.
I think they're gonna be terrible, but yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't have done what they did, but you got to. Here's the thing: in the East, it's really not that hard to be the 5th seed. If the Kings,
that's a fair point.
Over the last 20 years, if the Kings were an Eastern Conference team, they would have made the playoffs more than once.
I agree with you entirely.
Which probably is a bigger topic for us to discuss. Since Michael Jordan retired the second time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Second time. The East has been the JV conference. Now teams you'll say oh, well, the East has had a lot of champions in that time. LeBron has won 4 championships. 3 of them were in the East. The Celtics have won. There have been East Coast teams that have won championships during that time, to be sure. But Miami Heat, all of that. But it's always the way the East is structured is so weird. It's always there's one team that's
I was gonna say, the average team is bad in the East. And
the average team is always bad.
Yeah.
The average 5 seed would not be the average 8 seed historically in the West.
Agreed.
But so I think that, unfortunately, that's just, I don't know what the league could even do about that. I think that the league should, because people talk about relegation and should we have a relegation system like they do in professional soccer and
right.
And it's well, I think this could maybe be a way to do it where not every year, but every 5 years, you do this competition committee, and you look and it's okay, maybe we can move Memphis to the Eastern Conference, and we can move Minnesota to the Eastern Conference, and then we turn around and we move, I don't know what else is in the middle, Oklahoma, or whatever the line is,
right,
and you kind of do it like that. In the modern NBA with chartered flights, there's no reason that Denver, for example, which is dead center of the country, couldn't go either way.
It could be either way.
Right. It could be either way. And I think that kind of doing some tweaks there on the edges, that would be an interesting idea. But, I don't know if there's an appetite for it. It's going to happen eventually with 2 expansion franchises joining the Western Conference. They are going to have to kick 2 of the Western Conference teams east. I think Memphis and New Orleans are probably the most obvious ones that could just go to the Eastern Conference, but New Orleans sucks, so that doesn't help the competition committee. So
does Memphis, by the way.
I don't know. The NFL has the NFC North with the Dallas Cowboys or something
right. Yeah.
It's just geography made a lot more sense, and I would like the NBA to adopt a derby model, kind of like they have in soccer, where it's the week of the derby. So Manchester United's playing Manchester City. The 2 London teams are playing each other. The 2, I think we could do something cool like that, where it's Kings Warriors, Lakers Clippers, Nets Knicks,
right.
stuff like that, where it's you pair up all these
like a
derby
rivalry week
type
thing.
situations.
Yeah.
But then, so like in that way, you incorporate the geography, but you have some sort of thing with the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. I don't know how we got off on this topic because this wasn't in the agenda, but it's my podcast.
That's it. One more trade rumor that I did hear that I forgot to bring up was my understanding is that we got offered one of those firsts from Washington and Chris Middleton for Sabonis. I probably would have taken that trade.
What was the first though?
It was going to be like somewhere between 20 and 30. It was not an awesome first.
I'm trying to think if they have any young players on that team that I would have liked. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris Middleton was making like 30-ish, right? Like 30.
Yeah, but I think he's expiring soon.
He was expiring, and that's the reason Dallas did it, just to move off the money. But
right, and so
I would like a little more than a 20th pick in the draft. Like maybe one young prospect on top of that.
I would have considered it. I think I would have taken that.
It's better than Toronto's offer. I don't know if I would have done it.
I think what I heard is that they asked for 2 firsts. They wanted which essentially is exactly what they sent for Anthony Davis. They wanted.
What about swaps? What about give us the second one and we'll give you our second round pick, which is going to be like the 32nd pick. You know, like there's ways that they could have got a second first there, I feel like, but go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think the firsts that they gave to Dallas are the same firsts that they offered us, and I think they sent 3 firsts, and all of them are like top 20 protected. So that's what was on the table for us potentially, and from the rumor that I heard. And again, I would have taken that.
Okay. I have a question for you. I don't know if you have anything else. I have one question though that we could maybe sign off on.
Yeah.
I've done and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, maybe 3 minutes worth of research into this, but are we still stuck on AG Debonsa as the number 1 pick if the Kings get it? Or from what I'm hearing, this Drew Peterson character,
the guy from Kansas,
the Kansas guy, he's got like that Kobe like sociopathy where he's like waking up at 5 a.m. to train, like, you know.
So I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about his training schedule, but he has had some highlights that have caught my eye the last couple weeks where he's hit some daggers. He's hit a game winner. He had one of those deals where he scored like 12 points in 40 seconds or something. He looks legit. He looks really legit. So at this point, and honestly, again, I've done less than 3 minutes of research on this, but right. I think it's a toss up between those two. Whereas before, I think it was pretty consensus that the BYU kid was going to be number 1.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say, and we can close out on this. If the Kings have the number 1 pick, I'm going to reach out to Scott Pollard, and I'm going to ask him to assess Drew Peterson as a potential draft pick for the Kings, because if you remember, he doesn't miss when it comes to Kansas players. He will tell you who coming out of Kansas is going to make it in the NBA and who's going to be a flop. He told us Thomas Robinson was not an NBA player. He told us Ben McLemore was not going to be an NBA player, and we didn't listen.
Is he still the color commentator for Kansas?
Well, not to get somber here, but I don't know if you followed the Scott Pollard thing. He had a heart transplant.
Oh, wow.
He had a heart. He almost died.
I did not know that.
He is very lucky to be alive. He does Tuesday tidbits or something where like he puts something on Twitter every Tuesday, or Transplant Tuesday, I think is what he calls it. He's literally alive because his heart failed, and some 20-year-old kid died in like a motorcycle accident. He got the kids.
Wow.
Like it's a really rough situation from what I understand. So I don't think Scott Pollard's like doing color commentary anywhere, but I'm sure as long as he's got two eyeballs, he's watching Jayhawks basketball, and he could tell me whether
For sure.
Peterson can play or not. So,
and he loves himself some Kings.
With all that being said, any last words?
Go Kings, baby.